ideologically, how does this all work for China? How is it over these, since Deng and then Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao and now Xi Jinping have they been able to consider this line? One of the people I looked at was a gentleman called Wang Huning. He is remarkable in that he was a university professor, so he didn't follow the normal course of Chinese government, which is you join the party, you're sent out to some remote village, and then you try to work your way up. Remember, you'll go there somewhere between 20 and 22, maybe 24 years old, and then between that time and about your mid 50s, you have to show the kind of accomplishment necessary to go to the top of this pyramid. It's a brutal process, but it's one they all go through. And it's kind of the litmus test of determining whether somebody is able to govern because they've started at the very bottom and have to quickly go up through the ranks showing their abilities. So Wang Huning is a little bit different. He's on the standing committee, the most powerful group in China. He's one of 7 members, but he's purely about planning and about ideas. So he joins Jiang Zemin as one of his chief advisors, and it's through him that you start to see these policies kind of coalesce. And I'm saying that he alone did them. I'm saying that he alone was part of 3 generations of leadership and has been obviously instrumental, given that he's on the standing committee as we speak today. So what are his ideas? And his ideas is that, to marry both East and West. He's interesting because he went to America and he spent about 6 months there and he traveled. And it was kind of like the gentleman from France who came to America during the just after the Revolutionary period and watched it. Forgetting his name. I keep thinking Lafayette, but that's not the right name. He wrote a seminal book on the U.S. and its attitudes. A lot of it was good. A lot of it was, questioning and things like this. But it was a good way of looking at America. And I think if you're interested, you should read America on America by Wang Huning. And in there, he's complimentary about many aspects of the United States, but he also sees some problems. He sees this kind of idea that greed is good, and that the magic of the markets can somehow solve everything. I don't think he really saw that there. So his idea at the end of that, he comes back and he writes this book, and then he goes forward and he starts coming up with these ideas. You can divide China's development into first it was kind of export oriented economy. And then it was infrastructure led, a lot of investments, the fast rail, everything, the airports, the ports and bridges, everything like this. And then now it's that's tertiary phase where it's high quality development, or is that lead? But he came up with this idea that American modernity, as expressed by a number of intellectuals in the U.S., was not what China wanted in terms of modernity. And when I by modernity, I mean what is the definition of the future and the direction that you're going in. So he saw development with very important to have development without dependence. Right? He wanted to have growth and national resilience, but the growth would help national resilience so that China would not be dependent on others. And this is not about de-risking. This is simply about making sure, for instance, in terms of food security is a huge issue in China. Why? Because people have to eat. You have to take care of the necessities of people's lives, and they cannot be dependent on the whims or will of other nations. And that's very, very basic. Um, and in terms of modernization, sorry, kind of jumping back and forth a little bit, he wanted modernization without fragmentation. And this was one of the issues he saw in America, that there was a tremendous amount of fragmentation. It was kind of those who have were getting more, those who didn't were getting less. He saw a lot of political polarization. And he had a sense that this was not going to end well if it continued in this direction. So he is very concerned about how you pull a country together. Now, his magic elixir is values that once a country starts getting to a certain stage, you have to improve the life of people. And that has to be an accomplishment in itself. And it's not about more money. You have to have enough for your essentials. You have to enough to spend so that you can enjoy life, but you don't need excess above that. And it's not that he's saying there should be no rich people. He's just saying that everybody needs to enjoy society, not just a privileged few. So he's pushing that. And if you come to China, and if you ever have questions about China, please go to China first before you make a judgment. And I think you'll be quite surprised. I have many, many visitors who come here, and they always say, "Gee whiz, this is not the way I expected it, Einar. I really, I'm surprised. I've been misled." The people here are very nice, very kind, very generous. I could walk around at 4 a.m. in the morning. I could leave my backpack on my bike and you come back the next day and it would still be there. Kids leave their laptops in classrooms when they go to lunch. They're not concerned. It's just a very, very different level of security. And what you have is for the Chinese government, you have to provide a secure environment, or you have failed the first test of government. And you have to provide opportunity, and you have to provide fairness. So Wang Huning is really instrumental in terms of laying out the plan. And the plans now are it's not about him. I think he's given one interview. I know people who've actually talked to him. They're immensely impressed by his intellect, his ability to express ideas and things like that. But you can see what he's done in these big speeches that have been made by these three successive leaders that have all been part of this kind of overall planning. For instance, we talk about the four initiatives, the security initiative, economic development initiative, global governance initiative, the civilization initiatives. Each one was released 2 years apart. It was all part of a long-term plan. Get people used to this idea, educate them on it, then go to the next piece, the next piece, and the next piece. Why? Because it takes time to sell ideas. It takes time to people get used to them. You don't throw a whole bunch of ideas all at once at a large group of people because it can sometimes be very difficult for them to understand. So, as you can see, every 2 years they launch another part of the piece of the puzzle that allows people within China and those who are listening outside of China to understand the general direction that they're going. Now, China, in terms of their economics, they have a number of things that they're doing. First off, they don't want to give up the manufacturing that they have, but they know to be competitive, especially in low margin areas that don't have a lot of labor, where you can use robotics and automation. They want to cut costs. So, electricity in China is amongst the lowest in the world. Electricity is a big part of everything. For instance, it's 15 to 25% of a loaf of bread. When you start adding up fertilizer and all the machine inputs going, the plastic and, getting the logistics and costs and things like this. And that's true of almost everything. So unless you have some adequate supply of, you know, very inexpensive uh, uh, power, electricity in particular, you're not going to be able to produce very efficiently. But above and beyond that, they're using uh, the digital revolution in order to drive it. And by this, I mean, they're automating their factories. They're automating logistics so that in terms of from the moment the order is received to the moment it is delivered, right? And even the aftermarket services now heavily dependent on automation. And China installs more than half of the world's robots every year. They've been doing that for many years, in addition to actually kind of pushing the whole idea in terms of developing the robots themselves. All you need to do is take a look at the 2025 New Year gala, which is watched by about, I think, 80% of China. The robots were kind of like shaky little things. They were interesting, kind of cute, but, they didn't really look like they do anything. Then a year later, they're doing backflips and, did synchronized dancing, and they look extremely capable. And that was all in 1 year. So, China continues to advance. They want to develop new technology, but they're also willing to share it. This goes into this kind of Belt and Road Initiative. This is where they said, 2013 they launched the idea. 2015 it really starts. Since 2015, they've put about $1.4 trillion into this, and it's been mostly about infrastructure, ports, bridges, etc., as I was referring to before. Why? It's important. But then this year, Xi Jinping said, it's time. We've got the basic structure. Now it's time to color in. And somebody asked me, what does that mean, color in? It means that along with all these ports and bridges and things like that, you have to have real economic development, which means you have to have economic development zones, factories around there. And you got the port, you might as well use it to sell things. You don't want to just export resources. You have to climb the value chain so that you can get more value out for your country. It produces jobs. The jobs produce both income. It grows the local economy. It grows the international economy. This is what I was talking about in terms of growing the pie. So, part of that, China has said, look, we're willing to share technology and co-develop technology with you. Extremely, extremely attractive to the nations. I talked to a lot of the ambassadors here in China, and I asked them, I said, well, do you have something similar with the US? He says, no. U.S. pharma is not going to develop. They might put a factory for producing something in our country because it's cheaper, but everything else is proprietary. And the idea is that we buy it from them. In China, they say we can do a joint venture and you're going to participate not only in owning the intellectual property, but also benefiting from it. And China believes this is a good way to establishing firm um, um, ties to these countries and helping them, as I said, grow their economies, which China says, a rising tide floats all ships. So very, very different, all very, very forward looking.